Hi everyone, thanks so much for joining our June webinar. I hope you've been having a great start to the season. It's certainly warm out here in Ontario, so hopefully you guys have been out there enjoying some of that great weather. If you're new to life design analysis, I think this is a great webinar to start off on. Normally what we do is we take about 4 to 5 concepts. Sometimes we'll do a case study, a featured highlight on a particular feature inside of life design analysis. For the June webinar though, what we wanted to do was really focus on all around a compliance sale. So we really made it one kind of open-ended topic. We're going to look at, how you can use LDA to document every step of this process. So what we're going to try and accomplish is really start with a prospect and take them through that entire compliance sales process. So we're going to try and start with a needs analysis. We're going to share a link to our client. We want to show you what that looks like from the client side and how you can collaborate with them and fill in that, how you'll get notifications when they do. We're going to transition into sort of that product suitability, so giving them some transparency, showing them some options. We want to include things like a reason why letter. We want to include our disclosure, and then we want to say once a client buys, there's a whole separate service kind of interval that comes with it. So we want to show you how you can save that on file, and with some of these unique kind of renewal schedules on a lot of the products that are coming out, such as the YRT renewal schedule on term 10, it's going to be very important to document all of that and review it at the appropriate time. So we're also going to kind of trick the system a little bit and show maybe 7 years down the road when the same policy has been sold, how we're going to be alerted and come back to the same policy and review it. So we're going to play a little bit around with time, but hopefully going to show you how we're going to take someone from prospect to policyholder through to a policy review, all in the next hour. And we're going to show you a few other tips and tricks and how you can use things like our document storage, add all that back to the client file. So in the event of an audit, you have all of that information on file, accessible, and it makes it a lot easier. Now the other thing is we want to show you that compliance doesn't have to be a headache. This is the process that you would normally run an LDA case. Some of these things are just automatic. So again, we are trying to not only increase your sales by using our system, but also make compliance that asset. And I'm going to show you things like with the needs analysis. It's been proven that advisors who use one actually end up increasing the actual face value they sell their clients because they really open their eyes to how much insurance they actually need. So without further ado, I'm going to log into my life design analysis account. And again, as I said, if you are watching this for the first time, don't hesitate. After the webinar, sign up free. We have a 30-day free trial. We don't take credit card on sign up, so we give you the opportunity to try it. And if you're like most of our members, you'll really enjoy it. Most of our members increase sales, they save time, and again, the third point that I really want to emphasize is that compliance point that we're going to focus on today. So I'm going to go ahead and log into my account here. Again, we're totally web-based, so you can access this on any device. Now, once we're in here, what I really want to do is I'm going to start with a little bit of a case study. So I'm actually going to create a brand new client, and you can do this from the add a new case. You can create a new case on an existing client, or you could even go into our manage clients area here and create a brand new client. Now, when I come to the Manage Clients area, there's a couple different ways, as I said, that you can create clients. When you do import your block of business, you're going to see all of your existing clients here, their policy information. You can even do things like filter out their Term 10 conversion opportunities. Of course, you're going to get notified on these in the system, but we're going to get to that part a little bit later. We're going to pretend we have a brand new client. So I'm actually going to add a client from scratch. And in this example, I'm going to pick on our sales manager, John Jarvie. So I'm going to make him a new client here. I could just make him a 50-year-old name. I'm actually going to make him, I'll say 1978. So I'll say he's 40. I'm going to make him a little bit older. Let's say male. Again, occupation. I can leave that out there, and I can just say LDA. Again, you can see some fields are required. You don't have to enter everything on this field. This is really a lot for you and sort of that CRM component. So feel free, the more information you populate in here, the better, the more robust your record's going to be of this client. But remember, some of this stuff comes automatically in the import. So if you do those imports from carriers, you essentially build up a really great client file. So I've created a new client there, John. And you can just see, if I search here, I'm going to see John, and I should see John Jarvie. So you can use any of these filters to find, sort of any different kind of information. And it looks like I actually had John in there a little bit before. We're going to use this new record that we created for John. And actually, if you ever want to get rid of a client, this is a good idea. I can go in here. You can see I might have done one before. I'm just going to say edit client. and I'm just going to delete the client. So if you ever want to get rid of one, you can merge them together if you have duplicates. I just want to work with one record here. We're going to say John is a brand new client. Now, when I go into that sort of tombstone information, you can see I just entered this. We don't have any cases. We don't have any policies for this client. John is going to be a brand new prospect of ours. And one of the things we might want to do for John is actually start off by completing a needs analysis. So, one way to do it is just, make a case here. So we can go to John Jarvie here. We can say continue, and we can bring up a new design of the case. Now, on the right-hand side of the design case, you are going to see needs analysis over here in this little box. So you can get to it from the main dashboard and attach it to John, or you can go right into the case. Now, what I'd like to do is start off and show one of the ways one of our members uses life design analysis and starts off the onboarding of their client. And they do this by sending them the needs analysis. But what they want to do is have the client fill out some of the information to get really engaged in the process. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to start by going to the needs analysis tab and selecting edit. And I can change any of these details. Now, some of these values, the agent or the advisor may want to fill in themselves. No one is better positioned to know the current insurance of the client if they're your existing client. If during that prospecting phase where you were introduced to the client, they said, I have a little bit of X insurance, but I'd like a review, you can populate as many of these fields as you know or as you think you know and let the client edit it later. So I'm going to say, let's just say we know John has $100,000 of insurance. Again, we don't know necessarily his assets, so I won't fill that in. I don't want to take a guess on his mortgage because I don't want to be wrong. Same goes for his income, education. I might know that he has a couple of kids and young kids and actually really want to, say that, you want to consider some education fund for your kids. So let's just say $15,000 times those 2 kids that you have. So again, I might fill in some of the information that I have for this particular person. I may not have wanted to ask about their debt in that sort of first meeting, so I don't know that kind of information. I can put in things like last expenses. So I might say, say you want something like $15,000 in there. And again, I might know something else. Like I might want to say consider, I could say consider a charitable gift, and I'm going to put another $100,000 in there. Now, I'm going to save these changes on this particular client. But one of the things you'll see is, we want this client to fill out the additional information. So at the top of the needs analysis, you can see there is a button here that says link your client to fill. Now, what happens when we do this is very much like a shared case. It creates a unique kind of URL or a link so that the client can reach the same page and fill in the rest of the information. So all we have to do is copy this link. So just click this little blue button here, and it will copy that entire URL. Now remember, this is something that works on any different device. So, you may think about texting these links to your client, or you may think about sending them to them even on LinkedIn or something like that. It's very mobile friendly. So again, you can actually copy this on different devices and send it to them in different formats. You can also set an expiration date. So you may say like fill this out before the 3rd and then expire it so that they can't make any changes after a certain date. Of course, if they don't fill it out in the first place and you don't get notified, you may have to adjust that, but it's a very nice way to do it. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to come over here. I'm going to use email and say that I'm going to link my client to this. So I've actually set up here a little bit of a tab, and you can see I've set up an email here, to John, establish needs and goals. So I just kind of made a little templated message that said, thanks so much for your time yesterday. I know we can help you with your insurance goals. To kick things off, we want to start with a quick fact find so we can make sure we have the right insurance for your needs and the right time frame. Please fill out the following form if you have any questions. Use your mouse. So I give a little bit of instructions on the fact that they can mouse over some of these icons and they can see what it's for. Look forward to working with you. Now, the link that we copied is already copied to our clipboard. So all we have to do is insert it. And again, I'll just show you. We could do something like just put it out in the open like this where it's a long kind of string, but it's got all these numbers. What we might want to do is think about just even linking it or hyperlinking it in there. So I could say fill out the following form. So all I'm going to do is highlight this area, and I'm actually just going to add that in there as a link. So I'm just going to put the full URL, and I'll just say like that. So please fill out the following form if you have any questions and mouse over the errors. So all John is going to have to do is actually click on that. He'll be taken to the needs analysis. He can fill it out and save it, and then we can move on. So let's send that to John and have him fill that out. Okay, now while John's filling that out, why don't I take this opportunity to show you how that looks from the client side here. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to copy the same link here, and I'm actually going to open up a new incognito window. So Life Design Analysis knows the difference between a broker who's logged in what we call a session versus someone who's trying to access the link who's not logged into a session. So again, anyone who clicks the link, you've distributed it to your client. Just to give you an idea, this is what's going to show from your client side of things. So you can see actually John's already gone ahead and filled this out, but you can see your logo is going to go top left there. So it's not going to be our logo when you share a needs analysis. Again, it's going to be your own logo from the account settings. And your clients can actually go through and fill in these different fields here. So you can see any assets they would have to liquidate for future income. So it says not things like your house equity unless you're going to sell it. Things like your mortgage, so the amount of debt left owing on your house. Even when it comes to income after tax, so we show you sort of your actual income. It'll tell you the exact line on your T4 to look for. For consumers, we find this is extremely important, even when it comes to things like education. So young couple buying insurance for their kids who are potentially even in the womb still, may not know how much costs are going to be for universities. They're not even thinking about it. They're trying to get everything in place that comes with having a baby, let alone the planning that will ensue going forward. But again, it's always important to make something like an education fund with insurance to cover that sort of expense for them. So you can see we even give Canadian averages for for education and things like that. Again, especially important as last expenses. Not a lot of people think about this on the day-to-day. So when your clients go through the shared needs analysis, they actually get access to kind of Canadian averages and little guiding principles. Again, you can see they're going to be able to see anything and fill out all of these values. Now, I'll just give you an idea here. Again, I'm going to come back to my account here, and I've got several notifications here in the account. And what I want to show is that, again, we get a notification when John actually fills out that needs analysis. So it looks like he went in, he filled it out, saved it, and then actually came back and saved it again. So you can see at two different times that he actually kind of went in and edited that needs analysis. And this is where we could go in and say, okay, we've got him to fill it out now. Now we can sort of move on to this product suitability analysis. So what I'll do is I'll actually jump back to the last case here. We can go to our needs analysis, and once we kind of have that final number, we have all the fields filled out, this is where we might want to actually disable that link to prevent any future changes from John. So again, I can go in there. I can also unshare this link, which just takes away the ability for it to be public to the people we share it with. And so now we've captured that information, we unshare the link, and again, all of that information is still locked in there. And again, I'm just going to go back to this case. Okay, so this is perfect. So we've got John. We've sent him a nice introductory email. We've now established his needs at $765,000 there. Now again, you can still use whichever insurance benefit you want. So you might say, okay, you filled in all that information. That's great. You roughly need $765,000 of insurance. But with things like inflation and just for a little bit of future proofing, and again, we could add in inflation to that needs analysis. I'm just going to say we're going to look at $1 million here of insurance. And this is where we can start building our suitability analysis for John. So one thing is establishing certain facts of the case. The next one is building what products suit this client, and also keeping in mind we want to even if we know a certain product is suitable for a client, we also want to be transparent about their options, and potentially this means showing them unsuitable products and how they compare or how we reach our decision on that. Now, the other thing we want to do is we want to be completely unbiased as independent advisors as we approach the market. Even within your own product set, it's still important to be unbiased and show a wide variety of different products out there. Let me show you what I mean here by that. So I'm going to start building a suitability analysis for John. So John's still quite young. He's probably at that sweet spot where I want him to start thinking about at least some permanent insurance. But again, cash flow for young people, he's still only 40, might be getting up to that point where he's getting the raise and the career sort of progressing nicely. Let's start off, let's show some term. So I want to show them, we're going to search the market here for term. Now, Life Design Analysis is able to do this through our integration with LifeGuide. And if you're not familiar with LifeGuide, they're a multiple quotation service. They feed all of that information into us, so we can't do what we do without them. Subscribers of LifeGuide get a exclusive discount to Life Design Analysis, and that's due to that integration that we have with them. Now, again, anyone who's using this, though, you're familiar, you can go in here specify your insurance benefit. You can say, here's our term length that we're looking for. And again, I can change this to term 20 if I want to start off and say, you should consider maybe some term 20. Though for this client, that would put them at 60 when that term 20 comes to an end. But you know what? I'm going to show them some T10 here. So I'm just going to go out of there. And again, you can see you can set things like company filters, payment filters. And again, this just helps you sort of be transparent and help show, out of all the companies that you're licensed with, you're doing your due diligence by searching them all, making sure you select the most competitive product. Now you'll see, we've got different results here. Manulife comes out at the top, RBC following London Life and Great West. And again, you can see they're very tight. We all know the rankings are very tight. So, you can often use this to help show your clients, I may have picked a particular one, but it's because of this provision. It also might be a medical decision. So, if you wanted to show and see some of the different underwriting examples, you can just click that and you might pick a product because of its, its underwriting details. In this case, I'm just going to pick, I'm going to go to the top result. I'm going to go with this Manulife T10. And I'm doing this on purpose because I really want to highlight this YRT renewal schedule that is so popular going forward, especially if we do sell this policy, even as a temporary one to review later. Now again, I may want to compare this to perhaps even a min-funded universal life or even another term product. So I may say, based on John's income, I really don't think he has a huge need for a ton of universal life. Maybe I just want to show him that is an option. So I'm going to say we could solve that with this here. So I'm going to say a T100, and I'm going to do the search here. And I can pick any different company. I'll again go with the top result here. And I'm going to pick Sun Life and add it to the case. Now again, maybe I think John has a particular budget, or maybe he's kind of specified that he has a certain kind of budget to work within. I can also design, a whole life plan that might fit that budget as well. And, in some of these cases, I find, especially if it's somebody younger, we might build in something like a term rider. So in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to select Canada Life, and I'm going to add a little bit of whole life for Canada Life, but I'm going to do it in a little bit more of a layered strategy here. So just bear with me here. I'm just going to import from Canada Life software. For those of you watching for the first time, you'll notice sometimes I search for certain products and I add the guaranteed values. Sometimes we want more projected values and different dividend scales, or even different product designs, things like policy loans and withdrawals. Life Design Analysis actually has the ability not only to search rates through that Life Guide connection I mentioned, but also to interface with the carrier software. So for example, if I want to bring in a Canada Life whole life spreadsheet, or anything from say the Canada Life Concourse illustration software, I also have that option. So again, what you would do is normally design your case. I'm going to pick an Estate Achiever 20 pay in this kind of scenario. But really, any sort of product design, even any kind of funding, additional deposits, term riders, things like that, really can be designed in there. So again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust my client age to match the client I'm working with. I'm going to say, $1 million of coverage on John would be a great sale, but I don't think he has that cash flow to support it, so I might not even recommend it from that perspective. I'm going to say, let's do a quarter of this. So I'm going to say $250,000 of base coverage, and then I'm just going to do a term 20 rider for the additional amount. So I'm going to say $750,000, and I'm just going to say that this goes to, and he's 40, so I'm just going to say this goes to age 60 and update the illustration. Now, as I said, any kind of additional deposits, withdrawals, anything at all you design is carried over to our software through the spreadsheet. To do that, simply click that View Data button. It's right beside where you're probably familiar with the View Report, but it's this little kind of spreadsheet looking item. And then all you want to do is go down to Export to Excel, where you can export all of this information. It always gives you that warning box and pops it into Excel. From here, again, there's two real kind of main methods: either save the entire spreadsheet and just upload it as a file, or my preferred method, and just because it saves a step, I select everything by using this little corner button, and I just do a copy, or I'm using the keyboard shortcuts for Control-C, and I'm going to come back to Life Design Analysis, and I'm going to paste this information. Now, sometimes I've heard I do this a little fast for those watching for the first time. It really is this easy. Once you paste the information in, you say upload. But if you want to see it slower, we have printed guides, we have videos, we have lots of different resources, and of course, if ever you run into an issue, you can always ask us on our live chat for support. But let's move on. So I've got some different products added. So we've got John through the step. We've kind of onboarded him. We've filled out a needs analysis. We've done a suitability analysis, and this is going to be a great starting point to show him, we can cover the need that you do have. With a couple different options. And we want to generate this and show him what this looks like as far as his suitability analysis. Now, when we do present it, I just want to kind of briefly show, in the CLHIA, they do recommend that we have a disclosure as well as a few other key components. So what I'm going to do to reference kind of this framework of the CLHIA and what we're trying to kind of accomplish here is I'm just going to pull up our help center in life design analysis and reference a blog that we kind of outline this process. So if you're looking for, sort of how LDA helps with compliance or how you can kind of frame your best practices around compliance, take a look at our featured article called Don't Let Compliance Keep You Up at Night. This article, the whole purpose is to explore the pillars of the approach, and one of them are client expectations, disclosure, fact-finding, needs assessment, advise and recommend, and our reason why letter. Now, client expectations and disclosure, again, are something that we can automate in LDA. And what I wanted to show is that, within our system here, we're jumping ahead a little bit because we're kind of establishing what need we need to do the fact find, but it's because in the account settings of life design analysis, and I'll just kind of pop in here, you can customize every case that you design or every proposal to have a particular mission statement and disclaimer. And the reason this is so important is that when we're thinking about compliance and we have to set certain client expectations and we have to set certain disclosures about companies we're licensed with or perhaps even conflicts of interest, these are something that we can actually put in our account settings, in our mission statement or our disclaimer. You can see I've even mocked in here a signature where I can have them, sort of sign off on my disclaimer. So again, I've got a little bit of information here. Feel free to customize these. Remember, all of your own personalized text goes here. So if you have your own, compliance forms that you're using for client expectations, for disclosure, you can add those in so that they're included in every single report. And I'll show you what I mean by that. So I'm just going to flip back here to John. I've added the products that I think are suitable or that I want John to consider here. Now, when I generate my report, everything from the account settings up here is going to be incorporated. So I'm going to have a consistent template to work with. I'm going to have a consistent logo on every single report. Every report I create is going to be properly documented for its time. So it's going to be dated with the accurate date. It's prepared for him, presented by me. And again, anything as far as disclosures that I put in there are also going to be included in every report. So this is something where instead of doing this on every single case and having this kind of headache, we automate this process and we have a template for how we're going to fit into that compliant sale. So again, when we think about it, we link client to a needs analysis. We have the client perform the needs analysis. We get a notification when it's complete. We've done our product suitability. So this is our transparent comparison of market options. And then we're going to ultimately present it to the client. And that's the stage we're at right now. So I've got, kind of all my compliance checks offs in there. I've got my needs analysis here. Again, the client actually helped me populate this. And, it's been shown, a lot of articles show that advisors who perform a needs analysis, not only do they better protect their clients, but they actually sell more insurance because they help expose some of those liabilities that a lot of advisors who don't do a needs analysis miss simply because they're not asking those questions. They don't have a pre-populated template. So needs analysis, not only keep it on file with this client and back it up and have it. Client also helped us perform this needs analysis, so they feel involved in the process. They can't really claim the validity of our numbers. They've input them. And again, it's interactive and engaging. So again, I've got consider charitable gift. If they don't want it, they just simply click it off. Maybe they come to the meeting and say, we had something happened and we were able to pay off some of that household debt. Or, we decided not to buy a house and we're going to rent now. And again, I can take away the mortgage. So, this is very dynamic, and you can see as I kind of interact with these different legend items, I can actually see my changing needs. And again, this is very important for kind of that fact-finding, going through and interacting with your client, talking about changing needs, and really seeing what the true purpose of the insurance is for. Again, we're going to come down into a premium schedule here. We're going to see, we have that term 10, and again, we're highlighting that it does start very affordable, but we're really showing what happens after that 10 years. And this is what I really want to highlight going forward when we think about, potentially we may even sell this term 10 to the client. It still may be all they can afford at the moment, and, or we may want to lock down the insurability and we're selling it so we can review it in a couple years' time and convert it. But either way, again, what we've got here is we've got some options. We've got different carriers, so we're not being biased as to who we're showing. We've got different product types, and really we're going to document on file that as long as we have life design analysis, we're going to have this evidence of this plan that we created and how we came to a certain product recommendation. So again, thinking about if you were to get an audit or something like that in the future, having these kind of documents to back up how you reached a decision, how you reached the needs analysis, where your disclosure was for the case, and being able to say these are the decisions, these are how the client and I engaged in this process. Here's how we analyzed the different products and actually came to a result. And you can see, I know this one is not a full $1 million. We'll see how those paid up additions kind of catch up because it was a term rider, but, very competitive products. And we can see, there's a couple obvious advantages to that permanent product, not only from a cost perspective, but also from an insurance perspective. And again, in that one plan, we did that kind of term rider on top of a little bit of base. So we've got about a quarter base with the rest in term rider. And again, I still think the chart looks really good. Consumers really like seeing, this, value in whole life products. So a lot of the time we show them the cost. They don't necessarily see how it relates to the value in the plan. This is something, again, where adding a PV metric and showing even against inflation can help, keep you compliant. And again, when we think about different, how we stress the different dividend changes and things like that, I think a lot of times they get ignored. They're at the back of the booklet, the 34 pages, and it's already challenging enough to make a sale. But it's really important to stress the different components of these plans, that this total cash value is not guaranteed, but there is a guaranteed component of it. And again, even if our client was very prone to guarantees, we could show them that, I guarantee you never pay more than $152,000, and I can also guarantee that money comes back to you in year 34 if they never issue a dividend again. So those are two guarantees built into the plan. You could say, though, it's more likely you'll see a number between the yellow and the green here. The green is where we're on track for. If something happens, it is possible we could see a reduction. And so I can, again, bring in the reduced example. And that's sort of the benefit of having those different example types in the spreadsheet to contrast, because not only can we educate our clients on, sort of the changing nature of these different products and how the dividend operates, but again, we can also calm their fears around, things like guarantees and show them that, it's a very strong product regardless. Now, again, the more we've educated our clients to these, the more confident they are in the sale, the stronger the sale actually remains, because they actually know this information about the products they're buying. Same sort of thing with the insurance benefit. A lot of times we talk about a term rider. Clients might even nod their head, yes, I know what you're talking about. In reality, again, sometimes it can be drastically different. That's where, again, a shared report that really, kind of sets out these expectations, shows, we have very high coverage. In fact, starting at $1 million, growing up even more than $1 million, goes to about 1.1 at 20 years. The term rider then falls off, and you can see that here we would have a little bit of a deficit. So from our needs analysis, maybe the mortgage is dropped as well in proportion, so this might work out as a nice scenario. They may only have 5 years left until the house is totally paid off, meaning that this kind of layered approach actually fits their needs better. Sometimes we want to add a little bit more detail, so I'm just going to add a little note here for my client and just say that the term, what we call, I'm just going to say rider or add-on, lapses or at 20 years. And I'm just going to say no more cost or coverage for that portion of the plan. Let's say add-on here. They want a hyphen. So I can add a little custom note. And again, sometimes you might want to toggle these on and off just as kind of a how-to. Now, in this sort of report, I mean, definitely if they're a business owner, you can control things like credit to the CDA and show that versus total versus reduced. But again, I think, this is a good kind of presentation to put together and say, okay, this is what we want to, kind of show our client. Now, again, a couple different ways, when you do have a report set, you can, of course, generate the PDF, bring it to them as a nice leave behind. Maybe you bring the PDF, get them to sign those kind of compliance pages that we added in there, and kind of sign off on a decision. Another thing a lot of people are using, not only from a sales perspective, but also from a compliance perspective, is our shared case. And very much like we did the needs analysis, I want to show how a shared case can work in, okay, we've established your need, I've gone off, I've done my research, and now I want to make a recommendation. I want to show you the different products that I think can fit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share this case, and I'm just going to use this URL. I am going to request that my client enter their first name and last name before viewing it. And I could even set an expiration date because I don't want, sort of my proposal with these current pricing kind of assumptions and dividend, I don't want that lingering out there for a while. So I'm just going to say by the end of the month, I'm going to expire this link and say this is good to the end of the month, but after that, it's just going to expire. And again, all I have to do is copy this. I can go back and I can send this to John in an email. Very much the same way that we did in that shared link. So let me go ahead and do that, and we'll send it to John and see what he thinks for feedback. So I'm going to pop back over to my email here. You can see I've set up another kind of templated email here to John about his insurance options. And I just said, hi John, thanks for completing the needs analysis. I've put together a summary of the options I think you should consider. My recommendation is the whole life, as I think it offers the most long-term value for your needs. Take a look and let me know your thoughts. Now, of course, you can word this sort of any way you want. I've included the full URL here. Again, if you wanted to mask this a little bit more, you could just simply cut that out of there and say maybe under the take a look, or you could say take a look at this report. And again, if you wanted to, and again, I would just kind of highlight the this report here element of it, and I'm just going to say insert a link. And of course, I'm just going to paste in the link to the shared case. So you don't have to have that full URL. You can what's called hyperlink this into a report or send it in a text message. But anyway, I'm going to send John his insurance options and click send. So once I hit send and share it to him, all I have to do is wait for John to fill it out, and of course I'm going to get a notification when I refresh Life Design Analysis. So let's pop back to that case for John. I have the ability again here to just kind of speed this process up a little bit, so I've had John kind of fill in some comments here while we're talking. But as you can see, again, whenever you have a client share one of those needs analysis or share a report, whenever they complete that action or have some kind of engagement with it, you're going to get a notification in the system. And again, if I go into the notification area here, you can see I do have a number of different kind of opportunities here. So you can see John has visited the case that I shared. There's a couple different times that he visited it. You can see when he filled out the needs analysis, how many times they sort of engaged with it. But you're also going to get different other sort of information like client birthdays and things like that. Exchange opportunities, term conversion opportunities, and we're going to go a little bit more into that as how that can help in the compliance process as well. But let's just take a look right now. So again, John has visited the case we shared. We'll pop back to it here. Again, we can also click the link to get to it, and you're going to see there are some statistics around this, and a lot of people really like these from a sales perspective because they know the best time to follow up. So if I know that John looked at this over the weekend, Monday morning comes up, I launch up LDA, I see that I've got that brand new notification. Okay, now I want to follow up with my prospect. But the other thing is, a lot of people like this from a compliance standpoint. We know only John had access to that link. We only sent it to him. We can see the time he viewed this case. So, in the sake of being able to kind of perform this and actually show the time lapse, we're doing this one in advance, but you can see I have a record of exactly how long John spent on this case. And again, I can look through at the different times, so you can see, the first time John looked through this, he looked for it for 9 minutes. He came back and revisited it for 55 seconds. And you can even see he left a comment on the report. So you can see, so if I understand this correctly, I'm guaranteed to have more cash in the Canada Life policy than premium I invested after 35 years. But if it performs as projected, it will only take 21 years. So now I have a good idea of his interest in the policy or his understanding of the mechanics of the policy. You can also see, if so, I'd like to proceed with the whole life policy. So now we have some kind of indication on, sort of the progress of this. Now, this is a good opportunity. Of course, all of these comments and these kind of interactions between clients are going to be documented on file with this client and with this case. So now not only do we have our fact find, our needs analysis, we've done our suitability analysis, we have indication from the client as far as what policy they'd like to proceed with. And we can comment back and forth in a secure way to make sure that our notes are tied in right with this insurance sale. The other thing we might do is, make some internal notes. So, met John at a function. Make sure, met John at a function for charity. Sent needs analysis. John filled out most. Sent shared case and wants whole life. Loves cash value. Now these are going to be notes for us. These are not going to be shown in the actual LDA report. These are just sort of milestones that you may want to keep in, notes on. Like think of it as your notepad. It could be something like great health. Probably a preferred rate. The other thing we want to do, and that's becoming part of your compliance regime, I believe they've pushed off the date a little bit, but again, the reason why letter is something that you should get in practice of using. The reason why letter is going to become mandatory, very much like that needs analysis. And again, if you'd like to add your own, in the concepts, you can see there is a reason why letter that we make. You can also go into this manage templates area to define your own wording around some of these different concepts. So again, a reason why letter is something you want to include in every case. If you have your own version of it or you have your own wording that you'd like to use the manage templates and make it one of these user-defined templates. You can make as many as you want. These can make your life and your compliance life especially extremely easy, because when you want to add a reason why letter in the report, you simply click it and it becomes a report note. So I can add some information here about the recommended product, including the carrier type of insurance and coverage amount. So we might say something like we and then we can kind of fill these in. Now, for the sake of this webinar, I won't bore you too much with some of the different areas where we could kind of outline these. Again, any one that you don't want to include in there, you can always modify these, and then say we can say like next step, follow up with CI cross sell, reminder set in LDA. Something like that. So again, we can put different type of things we want to appear in our reason why letter, and all of that again is going to be found within the case itself. So again, we can do that, and again, I'll just show you if I generate the report. I would kind of fill that out in a little bit more detail, because what we're going to want to do is then get that signed off and actually issue the policy itself. So again, we can put in kind of the information there, and I'm just going to kind of scroll and just show you, here's where that reason why letter we included in there, and that's going to become a part of this case that we've built. So again, historically, we're going to be able to revisit this if ever we were brought to this in an audit or wanted to define our steps of that, sort of how we reached a recommendation there. Now, let's go back to this case and take a look and say, okay, let's pretend again we've done the whole application process. So one of the things our client has indicated they want to purchase this whole life product that we designed for them. So one of the things we might do once they've actually decided to purchase is actually go into this edit plan here for John, and again, of course, this is the area where normally I would recommend adding more detail. So I'm going to say it's an estate achiever. I'm also going to say this is a 20 pay base for 250K, and I'm going to say a term 20 rider for 750K, and I'm going to put 2 laps. So I'm just going to add a little bit more detail. The other thing I want to do is when you do sell a policy in LDA, one of the new features we've added, and this is so important going forward, not only from a compliance standpoint, but it's also going to help you kind of track and monitor those sales that you're making, is if you make a new sale, you can say save as a policy, which will save all of the cash values, all of the insurance benefits, the projections, the illustration, those renewals, anything like that in a policy. You can actually say save as a policy and mark as sold. Now, when you do the mark as sold, that's when we can send you those stats on, did you increase sales month over month, and give you kind of ways to track your progress. But again, I'm going to say mark as sold and save as a policy. Now, if I were to just click save here, it would say we need 2 crucial things. We need the issue date and the policy number. So I'm going to pretend that the issue date was actually, maybe I want to say that it was back in 2010 here. So I'm going to say, or maybe 2011. I'm just going to kind of fake this a little bit because I want to show what happens a little bit later. And I also want to say that, this has with a term 20 rider, I should say. So term 20 rider. So term 20 rider, 70K, designed 2 laps. And I'll just make sure I correct that. And I'm going to give it an older issue date. And the whole reason I'm doing this is I know this is a policy sold today, but I want to show you what happens with policies, even like term riders and things like that, in the future when they come up for review. And I'm just going to give this a policy number. So I'm just going to give it ABC 123. And again, I'm going to save it. Now, this is especially important when we think about reviewing term policies, for instance, like those YRT term policies, if we sell them, such as the Manulife one. Because the renewal schedule is going to be so hard to review in the future, it does make it very difficult. Now, just to show, when I do mark a policy as sold, again, when I go to that client file, what we'll see is any cases along the left that we've designed. So these would be kind of proposals. We can also see kind of the tombstone information. Our client is 39, but age near is 40. And of course, we can add more information to that as it becomes available. But we can also see any in-force policies. And again, anything that's in force or saved to file is going to get those notifications when it comes time to renew. And those notifications basically run every single night at midnight. We look over and we say how many policies fit into certain opportunities. If I'll just touch base and I'll go into the kind of the managed clients for a moment. And again, I'll kind of fast forward time again and show how that actually occurs. But you can see, if I wanted to find, for example, all of my Term 10 conversion opportunities, all I have to do is hit this Term 10 button. I can see all those Term 10 policies and when they were issued. And again, we sort them based on the most relevant opportunities. You can see I have a $3 million Term 10 policy that's actually coming up August 14th. So roughly in around 2 months, I'm going to have this opportunity. So this is a great time. And again, in Life Design Analysis, I'm going to get this notification for Bob several years in advance. So from a Term 10 policy, we notify you at year 7, 8, and 9, as well as 3 months from that issue date, so that you're prepared to put in a new proposal for this client. Again, you don't necessarily have to wait till they get the renewal letter from the carrier. That's usually a bad experience for the client. We want you to revisit this policy holder and maintain them with service. Now, you'll also see other case opportunities for things like exchanges. So these would be maybe Term 10s, within their first 5 years, but after that 2-year clawback mark, as well as Term 20s. Again, don't lose those opportunities. Look at Term 20s that are coming up for renewal as well. And just like we did where a client shares the case that we got, we're going to receive a notification. So I'm going to let it go a little bit of time. I have the benefit of being able to pre-record this webinar, but I'm going to wait overnight and we're going to see if we do get a notification for that policy on its issue date. We're going to see, because we faked the time of that policy, we're going to get fed a notification on the next day. Now, while we're waiting for that, again, one of the other things that we can do in Life Design Analysis to make our compliance life that much more manageable is actually add the documents that we might have, external files and things like that we might have to support this actual contract when it gets issued. So think these could be things like a scan of perhaps the actual contract, so when they send you the paper version of the contract. A lot of people keep those on file. But in an increasingly paperless world, it makes a lot of sense to have a digital backup of these and have them all tied to that actual case that you sold it. So one of those documents that we might have in addition to our LDA report is actually the carrier illustration itself. So if I go back here into Concourse, and if I again take my my compliance illustration and say view this report, this is something again we still sometimes need signed off by the carrier and may have on there so they've seen sort of all these details. Now one thing we can do is of course a lot of us save these to our actual computer. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to say download, and I'm going to say save this. And I'm just going to save this as example contract. So I'll say example contract or quote. And I'm just going to save it here into my downloads file, and that's great. But if I change computers in the future, or again, if I'm uploading it to a cloud document, we can't always guarantee those are going to be with us in the future because, one, we might change computers, and two, if we're uploading these kind of documents to a service like Dropbox, again, we want to be really cognizant about where that information is hosted and the laws it's subject to. So anything hosted in the U.S., the concern is around the Patriot Act. Thankfully, Life Design Analysis being a Canadian company, all of our information is hosted right here in Canada so that anytime that you upload information to us, it is entirely encrypted and secure. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to upload that document from my downloads folder. So I'm just going to take my example quote and say upload. And again, certain file types we won't allow. We're not looking for your movies and things like that. We want you to upload all of your compliance documents. And you can see I've uploaded the example quote. So even when I review this, maybe in 15 years, again, when I'm looking at that Term 20 rider and I say, okay, we might want to think about, reviewing this now. And again, we're going to fake this in a moment here. But I'll have the original quote tied to my presentation with all of my notes. I've got my reason why letter here. I've got reminders, backing up where I did it. I've got my needs analysis, and I've got my suitability analysis, all tied in this one little knot. And as you can see, as I'm working through this, I really don't have to do a lot of work to produce these. These are actually part of that regular sales process. So we want compliance to be an asset for you, not a liability. If these things automatically mark themselves and track themselves with the case, it makes it very easy to stay compliant. Okay, so fast forward 24 hours. I tricked the policy issue date to basically make that policy we marked as sold think it was actually coming up for renewal. So it does this by looking at the product description or the product type as well as the issue date, and we run certain triggers around important times in that policy to service it. So I mentioned it a little bit earlier, but it's worthwhile refreshing that. It'll do term exchanges, so that T10 to a T20 exchange provision that's in most contracts. It'll trigger after the second year, but before the fifth in most cases. And some companies, even like Canada Life, do go till 7 years. But it's good to review those policyholders. It's a good option to open the door. Term 10 policies are going to look at the years 7, 8, 9 on that issue date, as well as 3 months from that issue date. Now, in addition to getting a notification in Life Design Analysis, you've probably also seen that sometimes you get these unread notifications. And these are things like policy opportunities, their policy birthdays, and all you have to do is actually click here to view those notifications. It's worth noting that when you do log in and go view the notifications, you're going to see not only what it's notifying you about. So in our case, you can see it's recognized that we have a Term 20 conversion opportunity for John Jarvie, and that's because we made the issue date fall within one of those triggers. So I've kind of faked this, but think about this. If you get in the process of marking policies as sold, or if you import your block of business, because it knows the product type and the issue date, it can run certain reminders and notifications. The other thing that it can do is actually run example cases. So if it has enough detail on this client, meaning it knows the, kind of the name of the client, it knows the sex of the client, the smoker status, the birth date, it can actually run an example replacement case to save you a little bit of time. And these are intended as just recipes. You can always use these as a starting point to look at, what you would want to potentially present to a client. But you can also control those, what kind of reports it runs in the account settings. So I'll just show you really quickly here. That we call case automation. And it's actually in the system tab of your account settings. So again, where we were in account settings before, kind of setting up our case with our disclaimer, in the system tab, you can control things like when you receive notifications, if you receive our monthly report. You may have a different system for birthdays, so you could simply uncheck those. So if you find you're getting a lot of these unread notifications, again, if you're going in daily to Life Design Analysis, you may not want them. If you want to be reminded, but only of client case visits, conversion opportunities, those kind of things, again, you can specify that in there. And again, that sort of case automation runs based on the recipes we set. So you can see I had it set that this was a term 20 policy, so it's automatically going to run me a T10, a 20, and a min-funded UL, but you can specify that recipe. And if if you guys are looking for more recipes, please share with us. We're always open to feedback around that. So again, if I go into my notifications here, you can see that not only has it notified me that John has a conversion opportunity, so it's going to alert me to that fact, helping me stay compliant, but also giving me a great sales opportunity. And again, it's going to create an example case. So I'm actually going to take a look and see what it's created here. Of course, it's going to run on that recipe that I have, running that different replacement options that I might want to consider for this client, showing them, again, if it was 20 years, we may want to show them, a new T10 at that time. They may be, working on a retirement strategy and just, have got too old. We may want to show them some permanent insurance. But again, it's going to automatically run reports based on sort of the criteria you set in the account settings. So really play with those recipes, but again, that notification in the account is so valuable because again, when you import your block of business, it's going to be monitored and you're going to get alerted to those things a lot before the carrier. The carrier sends out that letter 3 months to, and oftentimes it's poor timing. So I write about this in another blog article, and I've mentioned it in past webinars, but oftentimes, think of clients who get that letter in December. They have 3 months to get new insurance or there's a huge liability created. So, we want you to go back to those policyholders. They might not always purchase at that right time. You might show them the exchange and they say, I'm perfectly content, but at least you've opened the door. At least you've let them know about that options and you keep that client communication going so that, when they do have an issue, they go to you. They don't feel like they didn't get service over that, kind of 10-year period. I hear this a lot that, clients think advisor sells them something and then they don't hear from them 10 years. So don't be afraid to go back to your clients with options. So, I know you purchased this, it's still suitable. I want you to know you have this provision, and here's what that looks like, and here's the LDA report. You never know what kind of doors those will open. So just before we wrap up, I just want to kind of just touch base back on John here, and I want to show again just a little bit about that issue date. So again, I'm just going to touch base on sort of when we marked a policy as sold and give it an issue date. You can see because this one has term 20 in the product name, because its issue date was 2002, and you can see I'm recording this one just to kind of show this and be able to modify time. But you can see I'm running this on the 6th, and that's the anniversary date of the policy. So based on the issue date and today's date, it recognizes that this policy had an opportunity and therefore runs that notification. Also runs the policy again if we have all of kind of the critical information to produce a report. If something's missing, it'll still give you the notification, but let's say, for instance, we don't know the gender of the client. Lots of times from the carrier imports, you've got to make sure you get that gender. If it doesn't have the gender of the client, it'll still give you the notification, it just won't run. So really, just to wrap up here, in conclusion, we've really aimed to make everything from prospecting to monitoring those sold policies really seamless from a compliance perspective, while also really encouraging, the right product sale and helping you sell and really communicate the value. If you do want a great article, definitely go to our website, lifedesignanalysis.com. If you haven't done so already, start your free trial and start getting into this process. We're going to walk you through it, hold your hand, help teach you. If you ever have any kind of questions, you can always ask us a question on the live chat. But certainly check out the blog. We do have our article called Don't Let Compliance Keep You Up at Night. And this is basically a summary of everything we've talked about today. So I just want to, kind of high level go over some of the different areas that Life Design Analysis helps in compliance sales. And again, really mirroring it based on the pillars of the approach. So when it comes to things like client expectations, disclosure, fact-finding, needs assessment, reason why letter, and our advice and recommendation. Again, there is this great flow in Life Design Analysis. So again, remember, start with a needs analysis, continue into a product suitability analysis. We sell a product, we want to add it to that in-force monitoring aspect of it. And all of this is backed up and encrypted with that in-force client file so that you have something to reference in the event of an audit, or just 7 years later as you go and refresh yourself on the case, what the client's goals were versus how they've changed. So again, remember, in your mission statement, you can set things that the client expects. So your services, the products that you offer, think about customizing that about your mission statement. Disclosure, conflicts of interest. Your business is just as unique. Even, the way you get paid or the companies that you are licensed with. Include that in that disclosure. Again, then you ensure that it gets in every case. Of course, fact-finding, collecting facts of the case from the client, that shared form where the client can fill out some of their liabilities, some of their assets. All that goes towards fact-finding as well as those notes. Again, it helps us compile that needs analysis, so all of that information goes towards assessing how much insurance a person needs. The needs analysis also helps us assess what kind of time frame they're looking at. Certain things are permanent, certain things are temporary, and we need to find the right balance of insurance products for that. On the other side, some needs increase and increase and increase. Wealth can create a need for insurance that increases over time as opposed to decreases. So that's equally important when we're doing our fact find and documenting the case. Of course, the advice and recommendation piece, a lot of this comes naturally, but again, having a compliant backup and being able to, prove how we found a certain product to be suitable. Even things like, did we do the full survey and look at the variety of companies out on the market versus just picking a certain one because they're sending us to Mexico. Using tools like this and doing a full analysis can really help back up that recommendation. As I said, if you're using LifeGuide right now, remember, think about using that discount and using two systems together. You can do a lot of research and documentation all together. Makes a great backup of all the kind of the research that you've done, documenting it, including things like your reason why letter. So again, this is something that we'll see come into more and more prominence. Tackle it now, get it part of that process, and then it's not such a headache. It's not such a did I do this, or an application is hanging on because we don't have a reason why letter or a needs analysis done for this particular client. And then again, in conclusion, we also want to mine that block of business, in-force autopilot, we often call it, as well as the document storage. So things like, attaching a copy of the signed, maybe it's a know your customer form or a signed version of the contract or even the contract itself, so that you have those supporting documents that, if a client calls up, or again, even if you're out of the office, LDA is something that you can access from any connected device. So you may be out on the road, policyholder asks about a certain contract, you can jump into their file and get it. And of course, the reminders. Again, you can set custom reminders inside of LDA. These might be things like cross-selling. They might be things like reviews. Again, our system's automatically going to notify you with certain reminders and keep you on top of that block of business, not only from a sales perspective, but also from compliance. And again, add that to some of those shared case abilities. So I want to thank everyone so much for joining today. I hope you enjoyed it. I know compliance isn't always the most fun topic, but hopefully this gives you some solutions to fill any gaps in your compliance process. Hopefully it saves you time. And again, hopefully it makes you feel more comfortable if in the event of an audit you had to document and show how you reached a certain product decision. And just as one sort of final remark as we close out here, a system is only as good as the person using it. So I really want you to commit to using this on every sale. Far too often I hear, I use LDA for whole life. You should be using LDA on every single case that you make, just because of the trail that it leaves behind automatically for your compliance purposes. So I hope that you make this part of your process. When you think insurance, I want you to think life design analysis and make it part of that process. And again, that I'll sort of close it out on that, but I want to thank everyone for coming. Let us know if you do have any feedback, any questions going forward, and thank you again so much for your participation. Take care.